Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be redoing this piece. I'm working on my own tarot card deck, and I started it and I was not extremely crazy about how this one turned out. So I figured it's still the first one in the deck. I might as well redo it. There are some things that I really like about this piece that I would like to carry over into the new one that I do. I really like the background with the temple, the mountains, and the kind of henna patterns that go inside of each one. I am not as crazy about the character. I think what I want different is that I want her to be bigger. Part of why I'm doing this is because I really like character design, and I feel like if she was bigger, I would be better able to add more details to the person, which is really what I want out of this deck, is characters that stand out, at least to me. This is Kiri. Her full name is Kirimvis Greenlock. In the D&D campaign that I play in, she is a cleric of the Madness domain, and basically she was adopted at a very young age by a holy temple after oh, my cat has interrupted. I have a cat named Smoothie. She's my whole heart, and I will never stop her from walking on my art. But yeah, so Kiri was adopted at a young age and into this temple. The reason I chose her to represent the Fool is because, for those of you who are familiar with tarot, and for those of you who are not, I'm still starting to learn it, which is another reason that I'm doing this deck, is it's my excuse to take each card one by one and really think intentionally about what it means and what it's supposed to mean, and learn as I go while making an image that I feel speaks to me about that card's meaning. So the reason I chose Kyri for the Fool is because the Fool, in some interpretations, represents naivety and venturing openly to the unknown, kind of expecting it to go well for you, I guess. The original card, the Fool, is this guy with a little sack over his shoulder, and he's just his body language is totally open with on over a cliff, he's entering the new world. And Kiri, when she finally left her temple, I think I wanted the character to be expecting her life as an adventure to be very easy and glorious, and what you read about in fairy tales and, odysseys. And her story went very differently. She is overly trusting. Part of her religion is that she has to expect the best out of everyone, and she has a shape-shifting deity, so her internal monologue sort of motto is treat everyone as if they might be your best friend, because it might be her deity in disguise, which it never has been, but she's very strict on her codes in that way, and it's gotten her and her party into some trouble. She's definitely put trust into the wrong people, and bad things have happened because of it. So that's kind of why I chose her for the Fool. I feel like she wants to be just this adventuring, open person, but she's new at it. She can be a little naive about what that actually looks like. One of my favorite Kiri anecdotes, which I reference all the time to my dungeon master, and it was just a bit of bad luck from a roll that totally, and this is kind of why I like Dungeons and Dragons, is literally one roll can change a character forever. But we were in this small town investigating this vampire outbreak thing, and There was this super sketchy guy who was super pale, didn't talk to anyone, never went outside, and we saw him and we were like, oh, obviously this is a vampire. So then we went to go talk to him and like suss him out, and I rolled an insight check. For those of you who aren't Dungeon Dragon savvy, insight check is basically like a vibe check. Like you roll to see like what you read about this person, or like aside from just the words that they're telling you, like what's their tone, like what's their body language, what vibe am I getting from this dude? And I rolled pretty high. I almost got as good as I could possibly get. So, and you know, I got good vibes from him. The consensus was like, you don't get any reason why he would not be trustworthy. So I totally went with it. And he was a vampire and tried to kill all of us. And one of our party members had to be resurrected. So after that arc, I was just like, what the heck, dude? I like rolled so high. Like, why didn't you give me anything? But, the vampire dude rolled a lot higher on deception. But that is like a key moment for me of like when Kiri kind of really represented the fool. She went in, was overly confident, and decided to trust this dude, and was really hurt that her naivety kind of came to the surface there. I feel like every D&D party needs that one character that's not afraid to just do the thing. What I mean by that is the more you've been playing, the more aware you are that everything could possibly be a ploy by the dungeon master to kill you. And once you get into that mentality, it's easy to just make characters that are really cautious and hesitating and slow the game down. And so every party needs someone who's just gonna push the button and see what happens, who's just gonna do the thing that gets the game going forward. And Kiri, my sweet little fool, takes that space in our party. And not to a reckless extent. She definitely doesn't go out looking for stupid decisions to make, but whenever the party is like stagnating and like taking forever to decide, Kiri is always the one who's just like, I'm gonna do the thing. Which also kind of reminds me of that same theme around the fool, with the naivety, the eagerness to just experience life, really not knowing what's on the other side of the door or what happens when you push the button or whatever the consequences may be, because it's not about that. It's about the experience, and at the same time continuously being confronted with your own naivety around those expectations that bad things do happen, and it's not always as interesting as you think it's going to be. Sometimes it's just bad. One way that this really comes up a lot with Kyri is her faith. Again, earlier I mentioned with the shape-shifting deity, but even on a more grounded level than that, her belief system is centered around change and embracing change, that's a part of life, that's a part of the adventure. And resisting change is frowned upon in her faith. And since she's a cleric, she's like very adamant about matching this belief system. I love playing holy characters because it's just like it can be such a fun thing to ground personality traits in. Very early on, this picture of her is extremely inaccurate because very early on in the campaign, she lost one of her eyes because she touched something that was cursed, and a cursed eyeball. Basically, the curse was that she ended up ripping her own eyeball out and replacing it with this cursed eye. And she was like, all right, this is my eye now. And like in a funny sense, because she's not a real person, it's just me being dramatic. But in a funny sense, the idea is that she obviously made a mistake, and at the same time, it's like not allowed in her religion, or at least she thinks so. It's not allowed to resist change or regret change, that you have to embrace it no matter what it is. And so even when something catastrophic like that happens, she's just like, cool, this is me now. This is what I look like. This cursed eyeball living in my skull is mine, and I'm going to give him a cute little name, and we're friends now. And then later in the same campaign, who knew that all the eyeball motifs would end up applying to her? But later in the campaign, she lost her other eye. She's currently blind because they were in this quest and they had to make some kind of sacrifice thing. And she did a bad one and as a result lost her eye as a consequence. And there is restorative magic that could have fixed that, but like another member in her team lost his arm from making the same mistake, but she was like, nope, I'm fully blind now. I don't have any eyeballs, and that's okay. So I don't know. Part of that really resonates with the Fool around continuously having these optimistic expectations around what you think is going to happen. I'm not sure if there's a better tarot representation for like that catastrophes keep happening and she just keeps the same energy. From this analytical standpoint, she might just be really stuck in her journey, which is like almost the opposite of what she's trying to do. But she continues to step with her arms wide open into the unknown, embracing whatever comes her way. So because of that, she's definitely my Fool, and I love her. In terms of why I chose her color palette, I love purples and pinks and blues. Those are my favorite colors, and oranges. So really like sunset colors, just, and the fun thing about Tiefling is that I could put all of them there at once, and it's a shame because as I make my next characters, I feel like I really peaked aesthetically with Kiri because she's just so cool and so fun and so pretty. And for me, 80% of the joy of character creation is just making something very aesthetically appealing. And she is a purple tiefling with dark purple hair, and she wears blue and orange. And if I could look like a fictional character, I would definitely want those combination of things. What is your favorite D&D character you've ever made, or your favorite character you've ever designed? What went into the thought process for you? For me, as I mentioned, it was totally color palette. I want a pretty girl because pretty girls are fun to draw. I wanted a character that I would enjoy drawing over and over because my first character was actually a nightmare to draw. So I wanted something that I would enjoy revisiting. I've changed her outfit a bunch of times. I have her in a bunch of different looks with 1 eye, 2 eyes, 0 eyes, just depending on where she is in her story. So that was a big piece for me in terms of what she looks like. For all of you who play Dungeons and Dragons or other RPG games, I'm wondering, aside from choosing class, race, and associated abilities, how in depth do you think about what your character looks like? How much does that impact your level of enjoyment in the game? Because for me, I'm such a visual person, that even if someone I'm playing with doesn't have a very fleshed out character design, I'm like, oh my god, I have no idea what this person looks like. And for those that do have very fleshed out ones, like while we're playing, I'm literally picturing my character speaking to their character instead of me speaking to them, which not everyone thinks that way, but I find it fun to just get as immersed as possible because, you know, it's an escape from reality, which can be a fun thing to step away from sometimes. At this point, I have already painted a few of the other tarot cards, and I did not record the other ones. I didn't really enjoy editing the background process, which we'll talk about a little bit more as it gets closer. I wanted each of the cards to have different types of, as I mentioned in the intro, like mandala themes, henna patterns, and I really did not enjoy the editing process for those because, like, just based on how I have my camera angle, it wasn't very fun to watch, but then it also felt weird to just paint the character and then boom, flash forward to the finished piece. So I ended up not really recording most of them. So, you know, just to set those expectations. It was fun to do it for my favorite character. And maybe I'll do one or two more, but in the end, I think I'm more looking forward to just having each of the cards at the end and maybe making a video where I'm just like talking through the decisions for each card without actually showing the process of making them, because that process was not, it just didn't seem as conducive to this type of format. So yeah, I would love to hear about your characters and fun anecdotes you've had with them. What if you know about tarot, what tarot card do you think your character would fall into? If you don't know about tarot, now you know a little bit more about the Fool, so I'm wondering if you feel like your character fits in with that theme. Well, this was great. Here is the finished product. Almost. I still need to paint the border for her. But I think she turned out great, and thanks for watching.